I'm Rich Oceguera, and I'm an out entrepreneur.
Hello, Out Bosses. Rhodes Perry here, and welcome to this week's episode of The Out Entrepreneur, a weekly podcast where I get to interview today's most inspiring LGBTQ bosses crushing it in business. And on this week's episode, we are welcoming fellow Out Boss, Rich Oceguera. And Rich, you're calling all the way from San Diego, California. Is that right?
Yes.
Yes.
San Diego.
Yeah. I'm feeling the sun coming all the way up to Portland, and we actually have a little sun today. We are really, really excited to have you on the show. Are you ready to inspire fellow Out Bosses?
I am super ready. Yes, let's do it.
All right. Well, I couldn't think of a better guest to inspire the audience here. So a little bit about Rich. He is the founder and CEO of Rich Awakenings, which is a company dedicated to helping you wake up to the power of mindset and mindfulness with the goal of turbocharging your business so that you can confidently attract more customer connections and more money. Who doesn't want that? So Rich is also an author, award-winning business leader, and co-founder and president of New York City's first ever LGBT Chamber of Commerce, and that is the NGLCC-NY. So Rich, you are definitely a legend amongst LGBT entrepreneurs, and it's just really, really wonderful to have you here. There's so many other wonderful things that I could be sharing, and I hope throughout this conversation you can really fill in the blanks about just the tremendous experience that you have with being an entrepreneur. So I know that you're doing a ton in your work. I have the pleasure of following you on social media. If you could, for the audience, just tell us a little bit more about what your business does and what makes it unique.
Sure. Thank you. I'm still hearing the word legend that you just said. I've never been called a legend before, so I like it.
Yeah.
And I think interestingly, I like that you said that word because my purpose and really what I'm all about with Rich Awakenings is helping entrepreneurs really own themselves as a legend. And that's what I mean by waking up to the power of mindset and mindfulness. If we're going to be in business for ourselves, it's hard. It's hard to be alive, let alone have a business. And what I have discovered is when you wake up to the power that we have to use our mind in a way that empowers us and to literally program our minds and couple that with practices like mindfulness or meditation, that you literally turbocharge your life and your business. And it gives you that edge to not just get by, but to really kick butt in whatever it is that you're up to. So that's my goal with Rich Awakenings. We do that through coaching programs, networking events, online programs, transformational events, private coaching, all kinds of ways, stuff that I do on social media. Any way I can reach out to let people know that they can actually program their minds, get rid of limiting beliefs, and really use that to empower them so they can put their work into the world.
I love what you're doing. We need more of that. And I'm curious about your journey because you've been in the space for a bit. In your bio, you were talking about blending 34 years of entrepreneurial experience in the business that you have now. Can you walk us through on how you arrived at Rich Awakenings? Because something tells me you didn't start out initially doing Rich Awakenings. So I'm just curious what the journey looked like for you.
Whew. How many hours do we have? So I'll bullet point this as much as I can. I'm so happy to be able to share this story here with you in this platform geared towards LGBT and allied people, because that's how my story began. When I realized I was gay when I was 14, and I'm 48 now. It was very much a secret and not something that I didn't just come out. But I was outed when I was 17, and the brother of my boyfriend, my high school boyfriend, his brother found out about us, and he came to my home and brought love letters that I had written. They were super cute love letters that I had written to my boyfriend, and he showed them to my mother. And I just remember I was standing behind the front door when this was happening, and he hands this letter to my mom. She reads it. There's a lot of silence, and then I hear him say, I don't care if your son is gay, but my brother's not. Keep your son away from him. Mm-hmm. And basically my whole life just flashed before my eyes. And the result of that is, I grew up in a Christian home, which I have to say, at the time, it was very important to me. And I really loved being a part of my Christian community, very much involved. And, my parents took me to the pastor's office, and the pastor said, well, you have to choose between being gay or Christian. Mm-hmm. And I said, well, I'm both. And he said, you can't be, choose one. And luckily, somehow at that time, I had started to really question, like, what does God mean? And I couldn't believe that this version of God was the God, the real thing. It was too small-minded. It didn't make sense to me. So I had started questioning that already. And I was able to say, well, then I'm gay. And that meant that I had to leave my home. I was given a few days to leave. I'm a senior in high school. And literally everything got taken away. My family connections, my boyfriend. I started getting death threats from his brother at high school. I get death threats in my locker. Everything got lost and that loss taken away from me, including my connection to God as I knew God at that time. And so it was that, which, sounds awful. And there's so many people have dealt with variations of this and far worse, coming out or being outed. But at that point, it was the most terrible thing that had happened to me. And I can look back now and say, wow, that was a gift. Yeah. A lot of pain along the way. But I can look back now because of the work that I've done, transformational work, personal development, spiritual development work, which is now what I do for other people, right? That work is what helped me to heal those wounds and that resentment and to sort of make sense of it all. But it put me on this path of seeking out, well, what is God, or what is spirituality, or how can I be connected to this higher power and be gay and be proud of that and not feel like, I'm going to go to hell, as I was told. So that outing is what put me onto this path and opened my eyes to a whole world of other forms of spiritual belief and not religious beliefs, but different forms of spirituality. And this is how I got introduced ultimately to the power of the mind, mindset work and mindfulness, and learning that God is not a religion, and God's not even a man. that God, it embodies both masculine and feminine, and learning to allow myself to let go of the old beliefs that I had been given and embraced as a kid, and to explore what actually worked for me in my life is what put me onto this path ultimately that, very long story short, led now to what I do through Rich Awakenings and helping people in their own belief systems, even their own religious systems, whatever it is, or no spiritual belief system at all needed, but helping people to wake up to the power that they have of using their mindset to identify limiting beliefs, lies that have been embedded in our heads, to reprogram our minds with empowering beliefs. And for those people who want to incorporate spirituality, that's an area that I'm an expert at in helping people, whatever their belief system is, to incorporate all of this to really help them use that internal power to navigate their business, to navigate their lives. So Rich Awakenings really got born when I got outed. And that experience in learning how to turn heartache and abandonment really is where the feelings that I've learned have come from. That I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough, God doesn't love me, my parents don't love me. Like those beliefs that I decided were true because of what happened, I've learned how to identify those as limiting beliefs that don't serve me, and how to create a new mindset that gives me power and allows me to do the work I'm here to do in the world.
So you had shared so much in that response. So I want to thank you for taking us back to a really difficult moment in your life when you were 14. And I was quickly doing the math in my head when you had shared your age at 48 and you said 14. That's 34 years of entrepreneurial experience. And you just did such a nice job of talking about how such a difficult moment of family and religious rejection shaped you, and while you were going through this hell in your life and in so many different respects, you can look back on that now. Clearly, you've done a lot of work of transforming that moment of being outed against your consent and really turning that into a motivating factor of building probably several successful businesses leading up to Rich Awakenings, but really highlighting how that moment started the journey of Rich Awakenings. I didn't like what your pastor had said, where you have to choose between your faith, your spirituality, and being yourself, being gay, amongst many other things that make you rich, right? That you are an intersectional, multidimensional human being that is both a part of the rainbow family and, practicing a spirituality that aligns with who you are in the world, and that you're able to share that in your business with so many other people who could benefit. Obviously, our audience, along with other people who've been damaged, are harmed by how we're supposed to behave as spiritual beings, and you're carving out a path of your own. And I think that that's such a nice way of thinking about entrepreneurship too, right? Like you said, it's hard, it's difficult, and it's kind of a microcosm of living a life, which is difficult, where we have to be the architects of what we want. And so so thank you for kind of taking us, walking us through that origin story of what started Rich Awakenings. As you're working with other people and doing this kind of transforming thinking, transforming limiting beliefs, what has you most inspired with the work that you're doing and kind of the tangible benefits that you're seeing with the clients that come to you and really seek out your services?
That's a good question. I'll say this because it's sort of like a second coming out for me. When I started in the coaching world, my business then was my name, Richard Oceguera Coaching. And I really positioned myself as an expert in networking and business development. And my entire, every job I've had, one way or another, has been sales, marketing, business development, something, public relations, selling something, someone's idea, products, or my own ideas and products. And I went from being I used to be very shy, and I'm an introvert, and I'm a Virgo. I know you're a Virgo.
Yay, introverts and Virgos, my favorite. Yeah.
Yes. So, that combination doesn't necessarily make for a good salesperson if you're shy and introverted.
Yep.
So part of my story is the transformation of getting rid of that identity as shy, learning how to work with the DNA of being an introvert, how to really have that work for me. So I learned how to drop all that shy stuff and became known in New York City as an amazing connector, a networker. That's how I ended up being given the opportunity to run NGLCC, to create and then run NGLCC New York. So what I love with all of that, knowing what I've been able to do for me, when I see clients who want that same ability to take their business to the next level, to break through those limiting beliefs, that those glass ceilings of their own, male or female, right? So that they could get to a different place, to a place of more freedom in their personal life, but also more success in their business. When I see them applying these very simple tools and crushing it, wow, that totally excites me. And interestingly, most of my clients have not been LGBT. I've had a couple. Mostly they're straight, or whatever, cisgender, the words, that they're not from our community. Yeah. And they're often very connected to their religion. They could be Christian or Mormon or something that I no longer identify with. And they hire me knowing that I'm gay, that I'm not their kind of spiritual person, but they know what I can do. And I love with those clients, seeing them embracing completely not my identity as a gay man. It's just not an issue for them. And it should be technically, according to their religion, but it's not. In a way, while I right now, my work is not directly in the LGBT community in terms of being a community leader or an activist or an advocate, like I was very visible in New York. Now I'm working directly with people and helping them change their minds and hearts by showing them that I'm just another guy I have some gifts and they can pay me for those gifts, and it's going to help them succeed in their families with their businesses. And so there's sort of this thing that I've experienced moving to San Diego. This is the second coming out part, where spirituality was always part of my journey, but I didn't talk about it and I didn't market myself in any way associated with spirituality. But what happened in San Diego was it became really apparent for me that had to be part of how I position myself now, and that I had to come out of that closet. So here's this gay spiritual guy, right? Who's going to help you build your business and sell more stuff.
Yeah.
I've been coming through these last few years through that second coming out, because it doesn't sit well with a lot of people, especially in the LGBT community.
Yeah.
What? You're spiritual or whatever they think. You're not supposed to be that. God doesn't exist, or God sucks, or God hates us, or there's a lot of confusion and hurt from people like me who experienced rejection from religion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
there's definitely a lot of wounds from some traditional organized religions, and I think what you're doing is really powerful, and it's a reminder again that for some of us within the Rainbow family, we're not devoid of faith. Some of us are practicing within traditional religious practices, and others have kind of carved out a spiritual path of their own. A lot of what you're sharing just reminds me of some work I used to do with LGBT youth, and kind of working with policymakers and talking about faith, and really trying to get people to see that for many of us, we still very much are connected to our faith, for better or worse. And there's complexity there, right? And I think that you kind of coming out again, and this is what business owners, this is what we have to struggle with again and again, is if we pivot in our business, we start a new business, we have to reintroduce ourselves to the world and share what we're doing. And that feels really scary. And I think especially with what you're doing, where you're blending, sales, marketing, PR, all that good stuff with purpose, with spirituality, and bringing those things together. I think at this moment in time of where we are in our country and the world, at least in the entrepreneur space, I'm refreshed to see more of this. I'm refreshed to see businesses that are based on spiritual practices, whether they're traditional or not, and reminding people that we're driven by our values, and we need some of that, I think, today. So I'm really grateful for the work that you're doing. One other question just on your business, you're talking about the typical clients that you're serving, and most of whom are not within the Rainbow family. How do you communicate, knowing your history of starting the NGLCC New York Chamber and just your commitment to inclusive practices in business? Is there a way that you communicate that to your clients where, they know that they're working with you, they know that you're a member of the LGBT family? Are there things intentionally that you're doing that help you attract people that may feel like, I've tried coaches before, but I feel like people don't get me, they don't understand where I'm coming from? Is there something that you're doing that kind of communicates something different, where you are open to working with people that aren't exactly like you?
That's the $10 million question. Because
tell me about it.
I often wonder, why aren't more LGBT people wanting to work with me? Right. So that's one of my marketing dilemmas. And why is it that it seems to be mostly women who tend to be in their 40s or so, who are probably married, who don't live lives anything like me? And why are they attracted to the work I do? And, I think one of them, which is really, I think the premise of your whole podcast is, about being out. I don't know what it's like to not be out. I don't know what it's like to not have, very tan skin or brown eyes and brown hair. It's just, this is my identity, so much so that I don't even think about it. And I'm at a point in my life, and it's been like this for so long, where I just assume everyone thinks or knows I'm gay, period.
Yeah.
So there isn't any I got to come out, or I need to pull back, or there are times, not related to business at all, where I might find myself in an environment where, if I'm with my partner, Cody, where I might get a little maybe we shouldn't touch here on this block, maybe there's fears like that. But when it comes to business, I think what it is by being my authentic self all the time. And I use social media quite a bit, as you see, and I share very openly about all the parts of my life. And I think that authenticity, I guess if I was going to put a word on it, is what draws certain people. Like they want that for themselves. And ultimately, I think, if I really drill down into what do I sell, call it coaching, call it whatever, right? I work with people to help them step into their authentic selves.
Yeah.
And I think that resonates with certain people. And I will say, there's no coincidence, because I talk about spirituality on social media, mindfulness, mindset work, right? That draws people who are ready for that conversation. And I think what's interesting is I notice that many of the people who are attracted to this kind of spirituality that I talk about, they do come from pretty entrenched religious backgrounds. And they are it's like they're coming out themselves like, oh, it's okay to talk about meditation. It's okay to talk about chakras. It's okay to talk about these other beliefs that are not necessarily what they're learning on Sunday.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think it boils down to authenticity.
Yeah. Authenticity and the freedom that comes with it. And you are, everything about your business, your brand, you're positioning yourself in a way of, hey, like these were the limiting beliefs that I was conditioned with as a child, et cetera. And here's how I've transformed them. And it seems that, at least for women who I'm assuming are married in opposite sex relationships in their 40s, there's something to that maybe coming from more traditional faith backgrounds of feeling confined and not being able to be free and explore spirituality in a way that you're making available and making open and safe for your clients. And I think that's wonderful.
Yeah, I think there might even be a piece of it too that has to do with their own healing to their relationship to the LGBT community.
Yeah,
like I'm a safe guy for women, whatever their sexual identity is. I know for a fact I've been told that women will open up to me in a way that they can't with other men, certain other men, because they feel very safe with me. And it might be because I'm not a sexual threat.
Yeah.
Right. But I think there's a piece of it that has to do with wanting to build a bridge where in the past, or maybe how they were brought up, that's not something they would do. They don't, we don't talk to gay people. We don't talk to LGBT people, right? They're the bad people. So I think there may be layers of that too. So these are all very interesting questions that you're asking me.
Yeah, this is fascinating. I love that, the healing around, what people might have been taught about LGBT folks, and also this access to intimacy in a way that is not sexual intimacy with a man, and that feels safer, right, for some women. And I think that's really, really fascinating. And yeah, we should have you come back on the show to have a separate conversation about all of that.
We could talk about, but as a coach, people hire you for one thing, but what they end up talking about is usually something totally different.
Yep. Yes.
And that's how I came on to all of this spirituality stuff. So people would hire me because they want to learn how to become confident and build a network, because they know they need to do that to get to the next level in their business. But then they wanted to talk about God. Like, what's going on? And I got excited about that. And it took me a while to see that pattern. And finally I did. And then I had to face how do I position myself as a business? Because I didn't want to be this woo, unicorns and crystals guy, even though I love crystals and all that. Right. But I didn't want to be like some cheesy, you know what I'm saying? I had to be very careful about how I presented myself, so I didn't come across as some weirdo, and have people take what I do seriously and have it still connect to business development. And it took quite some time, quite honestly, for me to pull all these pieces together, and for me to develop the confidence in myself at a new level. I know you talk about imposter syndrome and I've listened to a lot of your podcasts. And
I love how prepared you are. It's very nice.
I do my homework.
Yeah.
I do this. I interview people too. So I like being on this side though. But yeah, so it really brought up Like, who am I to talk about this? Who am I? Like, it's very scary for me to be, on Facebook Live talking about meditation and spirituality, publicly. Who's this guy? Who's that gay guy, who used to be from New York, who's blah, blah. Like, all these things that get made up in my head. And I didn't have to, I chose to do my work around that, my transformational work, to identify those beliefs that don't serve me, and then be with them, observe them, let them go, and create new ways. And it's taken years, quite frankly, to get to this place. And this is what's exciting now. Rich Awakenings is like the next iteration of my coaching practice. And so I've started using the name, as you know, but in a couple of months, the real website will get launched and it'll be official. So it's like this starting over process with this really a brand new business based on a ton of experience and doing it right, doing it wrong. But it's really like starting from scratch in many ways.
Yeah. I mean, and you speak to, again, it's just like thinking about the blend of all of the skills you have and making sure that the people that you worked with in the past, it's like, no, I'm still doing this. And here's a different way of thinking about it. And really trying to strike that balance. And I know so many of us, and myself included, it's, that's an ongoing, you constantly have to assess like how people perceive you and your brand and what you're doing, and making sure that that still aligns with your purpose and what you want to be putting out in the world. And I think you do that really nicely. And, it's 34 years of evolving, and no doubt we'll talk 10 years from now and you'll have further perfected the services that you're providing to your clients. I think that's really great. And I want to take a quick sponsorship break, and then we're going to go back and talk a little bit more about your identity and how that shows up in business. Aspiring out bosses, are you struggling with taking that first entrepreneurial leap? Does the imposter syndrome prevent you from getting started? Have you considered seeking support, but you're just not sure where to turn? Look no further. The Out Entrepreneur now offers a coaching and mentorship program where you can access support and strategies to shift your mindset from employee to entrepreneur. If you're looking for accountability and a mentor who successfully busted out of the 9-to-5 lifestyle, let's schedule a time to talk today. Visit www.outentrepreneur.com and look for show notes from today's episode to schedule a call. Again, the URL is www.outentrepreneur.com. Together, let's welcome you to the wonderful world of being an out boss. Okay, Rich. So going back into the conversation, the show is about being an out entrepreneur, being a part of the Rainbow family. And I'm curious if you could share with us, and thank you for, again, sharing a little bit about your childhood and some of the challenges that you had to overcome and the resiliencies you gained from that. I'm curious, over the past 3 decades of being an entrepreneur, has there ever been a time where it has been difficult, even though you're implicitly out, you're publicly out on the show, even when you think that people know you're part of the Rainbow family? Have you ever felt that you had to censor certain parts of who you are in a business setting? And if so, share with us a little bit about that and how you worked around it.
Oh man, you're full of good questions. And just to clarify, I haven't been an entrepreneur 34 years. I've been in sales and business, et cetera, for 34 years. But the entrepreneurship piece really started in about 1998, 99. Still a good chunk of time. But I'm trying to think. I will say this. I can't think like, well, oh my God, there was this one time when I really had to not be who I am. I can't think of a thing like that directly. I will tell you that there's plenty of times when I get nervous. Like for instance, there was one time I had an opportunity to go into a New York life insurance company to do a little presentation for a few of their top agents. And these guys were not like me. Like I felt like really gay compared next to them. Yep. They presented in a very different way. And I was really nervous because I thought, these guys are going to hate me. And the whole time I was talking, I just felt like they were making fun of me. And this was like, but this is what happens in the head, right? We whether it's true or not, our brain can start to make up some crazy stories.
Yeah.
But I decided that I was going to tell the story that I was telling a lot back then, and some of a slight version of what you heard about me being outed. But it was really a story about how I went from being shy to becoming an expert at networking. And it was clear in that story that I'm gay. And I was really nervous, and I must have been 100 shades of red. But I decided, well, I'm here. This is who I am. This is what I do. And even though I want to puke, I'm not altering the story just because these guys may not like me.
Right.
And actually, one of them ended up hiring me precisely because he really resonated with my story of transformation. And he remains I think almost 4 years now. He's remained one of my top clients. But I had a choice. I could have watered down or told something different or left something out. And I have been in those situations quite a bit, presenting to certain audiences that are really different from the usual for me, where people are, the men in particular, looking at me or looking away, looking down at the floor because they know I'm gay.
Yeah.
And so I think, that's hard.
Mm-hmm.
That's hard to be with, but that's where personal transformation work really comes in, right? In this mindset work, and having these tools to stick to your presentation, to stick to your guns, and to stick, in my case, my authenticity of like, well, being gay, I'm gay is part of who I am, and I can't leave that in the car.
Yeah.
Here I am.
Yeah.
So there's that's a learned skill. For me, it was a learned skill.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you speak really nicely to the subtleties, of, there wasn't a specific time, but here I can't quite place my finger on, perceive, like you were nervous about the threat of microaggressions, right? Like you thought, presenting to, New York Life Company, that these very straight masculine men were judging you. I mean, that takes a toll on our psyches, like you said, and it kind of feeds the stories we tell ourselves. And you were still in that moment, you were strong in saying, you know what, I'm feeling this, and I'm still going to stick with sharing the story about something that connects me to being gay. And you found your power in that at the same time, because it really moved at least one person in that room. I'm sure it moved everyone, right? And maybe the rest of the group wasn't as vocal, but you were able to secure a very loyal client by just being yourself. And that's risky, right? It's a risk every time we do that. And also just being honest that sometimes, it's okay. You don't always have to lead with, the hardest story about being a part of the rainbow family, and you can still be authentic in that, and just trying to manage feeling safer in an environment. And it changes, sometimes it just depends on the environment and the audience that you're in. So thank you for walking us through that, because that is the hardest question on the show. So, because it brings up stuff, right? It brings up stuff for all of us. So the next question is my favorite, and it builds off of, a webinar I recently did all around how we leverage our LGBT superpowers in business. And so I'm curious, from your perspective, do you believe that because of some of the not so great stuff that has happened in our lives that allow us to be more resilient, that gives us a competitive advantage, I guess, as business owners, drawing upon those experiences to just do our best work and what we do every day?
100%. That's, I was hoping you'd ask me superpower questions.
Yes, here it is.
But I didn't know what my answer would be. So, but yeah, I think that I believe, and from my experience of life, I know that the rejection that I've experienced over and over and over and over is tied specifically to being gay, right? When I was a little kid, even long before I knew I was gay or what that word even meant, my mom used to dress us really nicely, like very preppy. This was like in the early 80s or late 70s, I guess. And topsider shoes and members only jackets. And like, I had all the cool clothes, and I'd go to junior high, and the other kids, the cool dudes, they would call me gay and make fun of me. I was like, what? I don't understand. I just have I thought everyone dresses like this, and all the girls liked me, and so they would make fun of me because all the girls liked me. I thought, what? Isn't that what we want? Like,
right.
we want the girls liking me.
Yeah.
So I didn't understand until I had a girlfriend, Bernadette. Her name was Bernadette, and not the one that's been on your show twice.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying.
Yeah, exactly. I just listened to her interview, actually. I tried kissing her, and that's when she told me that I don't know how to kiss is when it started to make sense. Well, maybe I don't like girls after all. Yeah. But, from a very young age, I've been rejected. Common story for probably almost every LGBT person. Many of us experience this. And I think that rejection about our identity, and if we can be resilient, if we can learn whatever the tools are that we can grasp onto as we grow up and as we become adults, to not personalize that or to disassociate that from us, that is a major superpower, especially if you're in business and your job involves sales. Because if you are not selling, if you're not asking people to buy your stuff, then you're really not in business, right? Mm-hmm. And we will get more no's in sales conversations than we will get yeses. And I've been trained that no is a beautiful thing. One, it's clarity. We know they're not, it wasn't maybe I'll think about it, let me ask my wife. No. Great. Clear. Next. Okay. And it also, I'm trained to that every no gets me closer to that yes.
Yes.
And that's nice. I've heard that lots of sales, books and trainers talk about that. But I think because of the rejection and the opposition to who we are as human beings has happened for so long in our lives that we're used to no. Yeah. And you can use that to your advantage.
Yes.
And not let that, completely break you down especially if you're new in business and you're getting started and people don't want your service yet, or you don't know how to properly pitch it yet, right? Whatever the reasons are. Hearing no is a superpower. It turns into a superpower, or that rejection, and learning how to overcome that, how to heal that and properly contextualize it. That is a superpower.
Yeah, absolutely. It definitely bolsters our resiliencies. And like you said, it is in alignment with what you do. You have to transform every no into that positive spin of like, yes, and I'm going to be one step closer to landing that big client or whatever the goal is, of what you're working towards. And yeah, I think you're right. We have, for a lot of us, we've experienced some really challenging things in our lives, a lot of rejection. And so it makes us stronger in a lot of ways. So I think that's super insightful. So thank you for sharing that. And one last question before we jump into the bonus round. And that question is, when we think about, or when you're thinking about, the next generation of LGBT entrepreneurs or just LGBT employees, people in the workplace who are part of the Rainbow family, considering some of the challenges and then some of our superpowers, what do you want them to really think about or hone in on that will help them be more authentic in their work?
Well, I think it boils down to a declaration or an affirmation. It would be this: I am worthy. And what I've learned from coaching so many people over the years, and just my own healing process, is at the root of all the limiting beliefs. If you just dig deep enough, it gets down to this worthiness concept.
Yeah.
Where somewhere along the line we're told we're not worthy, or we believe we're not worthy. That is the root of mindset stuff, mindset work. So if someone's just getting out and starting a business, or if they're in the corporate environment, I believe in either case, being visible, putting yourself out there. So networking, attending events, in the corporate world, getting on a committee, depending on the size of the company, right? But looking for those internal initiatives that you can volunteer on, or take on leadership roles. As a business owner, getting involved in your local chamber of commerce, and not just the gay one or LGBT one, getting involved with events where your customers might be, putting yourself out there so you're visible. And if you have fears around that, which many people do, start to say the mantra, I am worthy. And the more you say this, literally, your brain develops a neural pathway, a new circuit, a memory habit. Say this stuff to yourself enough, your brain starts to believe that, and life starts to show up differently. Not magically, it's all about energy.
Yeah.
So life shows up around us based on our thoughts. Your words, your thoughts create your reality. So you can help yourself get out of that fear and that sense of unworthiness by starting to tell yourself, even though you don't feel like it right now, that you are worthy. Because the more visible you can be, the more connections you're going to make, and the more wanted you're going to be, the more needed that you're going to be in your various communities.
Yeah, I think that's beautiful. I am worthy, and I think you did a really great job of doing kind of a manifesting 101 and a quick response to a question. So thank you for that. I think that was beautiful.
Yes.
All right, we are now going into our bonus round where we'll have the chance to get to know Rich just a little bit better. We're going to gain some insights on how we can bring our whole selves to work. And then we're going to learn one way that we can stay in touch with Rich after our conversation. So, Rich, are you ready for some quick fire questions?
I'm ready.
Okay. All right. Okay, here we go. So finish the sentence. As an outboss, I believe.
I am worthy.
Yeah, I love it. You might want to repurpose that response for the next question. So do you have a mantra or a quote that you reference that helps you stay motivated in your business, especially when things get tough?
So yes, it's this. It's a question I ask myself. Who am I willing to be in order to produce extraordinary results from this day?
Who am I willing to be in order to produce extraordinary results today? Did I get it right?
Mm-hmm.
That's beautiful. I love that. I'm gonna write that above my whiteboard. I love that. Okay. So name one thing that you readily delegate in your business to stay focused on what you're good at.
I knew you were gonna ask that question. I'm right now, it's like all about me. And as I get closer to Rich Awakenings launching, I will be delegating the production of my podcast.
Yes. Do it.
Yep.
Do it. You will save so much time. Trust me. I know some good production people. So if you need some connections, I'm happy to help you.
Hook a brother up.
Yes, definitely. Okay. So I'm sure you have many of these personal habits, but I'm curious, can you share just one personal habit that helps you master yourself and your business?
Mm-hmm. Meditation.
Yeah. Yeah. I had a hunch you were going to say that. And can you say just a little bit more about it, just because this is a big part of your business?
Absolutely. Yeah. Meditation, really tuning in, taking some time. Some days it might be a minute, other days it might be 10 minutes or longer, but it's literally, so Eckhart Tolle, who's a very well-known, living guru of our time, Eckhart Tolle, he says 1 conscious breath in and 1 conscious breath out is meditation.
Yeah. Keep it simple, right?
Breathing, focusing on my breath, tuning into what's happening in my body, the thoughts that are flying in my head. That it's as simple as that. Yeah.
I love that. And it comes up a lot on the show. And I think it's a good reminder, especially if you're listening right now, just take a breath in, take a breath out. You meditated for today. Love it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what are you most grateful for with being a business owner who is also an outboss?
Wow. The word that popped into my head was resiliency.
Yeah.
And that however that happened for me, that I have that, because no matter what happens, what falls apart or what goes great, like I keep getting back up.
Yeah.
So I'm grateful for that trait, however it got there.
Yeah, definitely. We need more of that as entrepreneurs. So 2 more questions for you. Can you share one piece of advice to inspire the next generation of outbosses to take that first entrepreneurial leap?
Pay attention.
Yeah.
Notice the opportunities that pop up for you. For me, I went from being an employee to becoming an entrepreneur because I got fired from a job because I was doing really good at a side project that I did for someone else, which suddenly I didn't have it was my first time ever being an employee, and I got hired. Very long story short, ended up getting hired by a man who wanted to start an internet startup, and I went from a producer at a little tiny place in New York to becoming a CEO, making 6 figures at a startup like all because I took a chance on something.
Yeah.
And so I was aware, like, oh, and a lot of it had to do with my mindset as well that led to that. Yeah. So pay attention to the opportunities around you and then just take a risk, do it.
Yes. That's a really good reminder. And you never know how those opportunities will pop up. So try not to judge or assume, just kind of accept when they come into your life and be open to them. Okay. So Rich, thank you so much for your time and for inspiring fellow outbosses. Before we go, can you share one way that we can stay in touch with you and learn more about your business?
Yes. So the best way is my website, richawakenings.com, richawakenings.com. From there, there's a couple ways for you to connect with me. And I offer a complimentary 30-minute mindset makeover. So anyone who wants to identify a limiting belief and do some work around turning that around, you can book that there as well.
Excellent. All right. So we'll be sure to include your website in the show notes. And for Outbosses, thank you again for tuning into this week's episode. As always, it is a privilege to connect with you and so many inspiring outbosses like Rich. So for details from today's conversation, you can go over to outentrepreneur.com. Again, that is outentrepreneur.com. If you have a phone in front of you and you don't want to look it up online right now, just go ahead and text 444-999 and type in Outboss, and you will be connected with the show. And as a next step, definitely subscribe, consider leaving a rating and review in iTunes, and share this episode with a friend or a loved one. And as always, keep being your authentic selves 100% of the time.